Here's my album review from the gym for the newest title of the Creator Album Chromakopia. But if you want to leave me a recommendation for an album to listen to at the gym next, leave in the comments. I got to as many as I can. Yes, I know this review is probably about a month later since the album actually came out, but I wanted to actually let my thoughts kind of actually finalize. And because this album is pretty important to me, because Tyler has consistently been one of like my top 5 artists for many, many years now, going back to like 2013 when he released Wolf. I've really loved his artistic transformation and maturity in the years following that album, going from more of like a shock rapper pushing boundaries and just bucking authority to having more emotional depth and self-reflection in his later releases. A lot of things have also changed with this release. It's not released in like his regular 2-year cycle. There's no double named song on the 10th track, and he's going for a slightly different narrative approach on this. The theming largely revolves around advice given to him by his mother, who appears on several tracks on this to give him advice and life stories, which Tyler ties into that track's theme. A lot of it revolves around Tyler's issues in his life, like the paranoia that he goes through pretty regularly, along with like relationship issues. The biggest one for me is on the track Hey Jane, where the song kind of tells a story of how Tyler was sleeping with a woman he recently and didn't end up wearing a condom, leading to her getting pregnant. And it's a very intense track where he seems to like this person, but he's clearly not ready to have a child with his lifestyle. And the fact that he seems to be, pretty into not sleeping around, but not monogamy, I guess. On the song, he says he'd like to remain friends with her, but he's really okay with it either way, either keeping it or getting rid of it. This Jane character, who's definitely not called Jane, it's just a pseudonym, then says that she's 35 and doesn't want to go through that again, but says that she's okay with keeping it a secret and raising it herself in London. And for me, it just felt like a huge crux in the track list, something he then self-reflects on with a track like him, with his mother saying he looks and acts very similar to Tyler's actual father, who abandoned him at a young age. The track then ends with his mother kind of apologizing and saying it was her decision to raise Tyler by herself. And I think that this should have been a self-realization moment that he'd been doing the same thing to this other child, but it doesn't sound like he makes that kind of realization, or maybe he does and just doesn't really vocalize it too much on the track, but it just kind of doomed them into the same generational trauma that he experienced, because he's voiced that his disdain for his father for many, many years, going back to like the song Answer on Wolf. It could also be that Tyler kind of wears his missing father as a badge of honor and thinks that it worked out well for him that his father was gone, because look at him now, but it just kind of seems like that connection is missing. He even on the track uses the fact that both of their dads are gone as a connection point to this Jane character. So this track kind of upset me a little bit after listening to it, but after many, many other re-listens, I kind of reflected more on the track Darling I with Tizo Touchdown right before it, where he talks pretty heavily about his disdain for monogamy and just he can't really settle down with one person and that he's really just all over the place. So that adds a bit more of like a fold or a layer in this kind of relationship. So it connected a little bit for me on there, but it still doesn't excuse everything that he's, putting this person through. And we don't even know if this person even ended up keeping the kid or what the context of it even was, or even if this was a real situation in the first place. Maybe he's kind of using that as a reason why he should be a bit more serious about his relationships, but I don't know. There are other themes on this of like his mother wanting grandchildren pretty badly and how his friends like A$AP Rocky are now having children, but he brushes this off by using paranoia to push these feelings away. So I'll get off of this topic, but outside of this, I also really like the track Take Your Mask Off, which details the secret life of like closeted gay men with wives and children, and how Tyler details how they've ruining the trust and time of the women that they secretly don't love, and how they kind of like preach religion as soon as they're finished sleeping with him. It's a pretty interesting angle, giving Tyler's openness and his sexuality revealed on previous albums to be bisexual. The other themes include the group track Sticky, which details the many sticky situations that Tyler finds himself in. And it features a lot of great artists like Glorilla, Sexy Red, Lil Wayne, and Solange, even though Tyler kind of trolled by saying there's not going to be any features when he released this on his Twitter bio. Some other features are more prominent, like Doechii on Balloon, Childish Gambino's vocals on I Killed You, Tizo Touchdown and Darling I, Daniel Caesar on Take Your Mask Off, and a few others. There's even one like random ad-lib that Baby Keem had added on the end of a track I thought was pretty funny. I also really enjoyed how a couple weeks after the release of the album, he actually fully credited the featuring artists that are on the song, because when it originally dropped, there was no featuring this artist in the titles of the tracks. It was just the track titles. So it kind of gave you that mysterious, once you finally figure out who it is on the song, you're like, oh shit, that's the cool person. So I like when artists do that. It's a cool touch. Plus, pretty much all of them add their own sound and vibes to each of the track and make them pretty good. So really good feature list. A few tracks do remind me of other Tyler albums, but this one does sound pretty distinct from his other works, and I'm not really sure how the Chromakopia theme ties into this at all. It's really only mentioned on the opener and closer and doesn't really add too much for me. It could be like a fake land that he perceives himself in. I'm not entirely sure yet. Maybe with more research and added listens, that could add a bit more context for me, but I'm not sure. For me, though, the theming isn't as enveloping or otherworldly as some of his other albums have been. And in a way, this album felt like it's his version of Kendrick's Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It's a bit more of a sobering reflection of himself, where his last albums could be a little bit vain and pretty braggadocious, but he still has a few of those moments on this album. But given the fact that Tyler praised Mr. Morale in a couple interviews in the past, it could be that he really wanted to make a version of that for himself, and no shade to that at all. I definitely appreciate when some artists have a bit more of like a therapeutic session on their albums. So now at this point, I've listened to this album several times at the gym. So in that aspect of listening to it, it's not too bad. There are a few slower and more serious tracks, but there are also a fair share of bangers through this. So in my opinion, it's not my favorite Tyler album and not going to be in like my top 5. It'll probably be in my top 10. But this could definitely improve after more listens, which it'll definitely get regardless of what my placement is. In terms of a rating, I'm stuck kind of between a high 7 and a low 8. I'm going to give it the benefit of the doubt and give it a low 8 out of 10. It was really, really a great album, and I'm very happy that Tyler's getting the recognition he deserves, because as soon as this was released on a Monday, for some random reason, it was #1 in the nation for like 3 days or 4 days straight, topping Taylor Swift. So that's pretty incredible. I'm really glad that Tyler is seeing success this late into his career, and that people are listening to quote-unquote weirdo music that I think like DJ Khaled had said about him or something. So much thanks to Tyler for really being a great musical force throughout my entire life. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Again, this is kind of a one-off episode. I don't really do this too often unless it's for a heavily anticipated album. So thank you guys for sticking around. More of the 5 album at the gym episodes are coming out pretty soon. So if you want to leave any recommendations for those in the comments, go ahead and leave them down there. I'll get to pretty much as many as I can. And thanks for watching.